What's good, you bunch of motherfucks? It's your boy MC Swamptiger, 4 MCs, by MCs, Team Slick Talk, 5 Sigma. You know the whole fucking deal. And today, we talking about memorization. Remembering those fucking bars. Because I've been to too many battle events and just had to sit there feeling terrible watching this dude who could have potentially had a fire round just not be able to deliver it. And I know that's got to be a terrible feeling, knowing that you were sitting on that fire and you just couldn't deliver it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about my method for memorization, because at this point, I'm not writing any lyrics down. Everything is completely stored up here, and it's just worked out way before the battle. So if you can memorize on the spot, then you don't really have to practice as much in the end. But that's just a small part of this. Memorization, repetition is going to play a big part, but it's not everything. So let's talk about the brain. Now, your brain has limited space, and as you go through the day, you're forming new connections in the brain and kind of filling up that space throughout the day. But while this is happening, your brain is also producing a chemical called adenosine. Now, adenosine is a chemical that makes you tired, and it also slows brain productivity. Now, there are ways of combating adenosine using basic day-to-day stimulants. I'm not talking like cocaine or fucking meth or anything like that, because that actually has the opposite effect when it's, introduced in such a serious extreme. I'm talking about shit like caffeine or nicotine, which I'm a smoker, and I can tell you I smoke twice as much while I'm writing just because of what I'm about to tell you. Now, caffeine and nicotine are both very, very similar in structure to adenosine. So what happens is that caffeine gets to your brain and it can fit right into those adenosine receptors and completely block out the adenosine, and the stimulant effect of it will actually increase brain productivity, making it a lot easier for you to make synaptic connections in your brain. Now, let's move on and talk about sleep, because sleep plays a huge fucking part in memorizing your bars. Don't stay up all night practicing your shit. That does not fucking work at all. There's no science that's going to tell you that that's the case. So let's move on and let's talk about sleep. Now, as I said before, your brain has limited space. So it makes new connections every time you complete a task, whether you fucking clock in at work, whether you take a shower, shit, shave, whatever the fuck. Your brain is getting full from all of this shit during the day. However, some of those connections are going to be softer, and some of those are going to be harder. So, for instance, if you are practicing your bars for hours and hours and hours, you are forming very, very strong connections. And when you go to sleep, electrical pulses go from the back of your brain to the front of your brain, kind of washing out all the bullshit of the day. And they weaken all of the connections that you've made during the day, even your bars. But you have to picture those proteins as kind of on a volume knob. You know what I mean? So the softer connections are going to get washed out a lot easier. And what's going to happen there is it's going to make those harder connections stand out a lot more in your mind. So if you've practiced your bars while you're sleeping, all the bullshit falls away and your bars kind of stand out a lot more distinctly. And this is actually all based on a University of Wisconsin study on sleep done by a guy named Giulio Tononi. Now, we're going to move into more of my personal theory on this. Now, a long time ago, I had a good friend of mine who was a nurse, and she would work very long hours. And she told me that one of their tricks to staying alert and awake and being able to care for patients without being groggy or just their brains not working is they would chug down a cup of coffee or an energy drink and go to sleep immediately. And then they would sleep for an hour, which gives them enough time to get into that REM sleep. So by the time they wake up, they weren't feeling the effects of the caffeine prior to going to sleep. But by the time they wake up, they feel rested because they hit that REM sleep and they have the effects of the stimulant. So their brains are now working fucking phenomenally. It works normally when they've had very, very little sleep. Now, when I write, my wife will constantly look over at me in my bed, and I will be kind of like half asleep. And she'll be like, "Are you writing or are you sleeping?" And I'm like, "It's a little bit of both, you know?" So let's move on to the methodology now that we have the information here. So what I like to do is I will practice for hours and hours and hours on my bars, just trying to get, an introduction or get a few things, find some words that I feel like match, maybe have a couple throwaway bars, just shit that I'm working with. And then I will chug down a fucking cup of coffee or a fucking energy drink, and I will pass the fuck out. And what happens there is I'm already, getting rid of that fucking adenosine and allowing my brain to work a lot faster, as well as laying down and getting myself into that kind of half sleep state where it's drowning out all the bullshit of the day and my mind is purely focused on my bars. And I will continually kind of like repeat this process or get up and just move around during this process, and that allows those bars to just be like solidified into my memory. And this is all based on basic neuroscience. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche said that his best thoughts came to him when he was walking. And he was a brilliant philosopher, so he had a lot of very in-depth thoughts. And the same thing kind of works that way. As you work up your body and you exercise, you are increasing the electrical pulses in your brain, allowing those connections to be made a lot easier. So if you're walking, then you're going to be able to write better walking or after a walk. So if you take a walk, come home, practice your bars, chug a cup of coffee, go to fucking sleep for a little bit, pop, you wake up, you got that shit. It's smooth, it's fluid. And I know this all sounds extremely simple, which is why I'm trying to provide the science that goes behind it so that you can understand the way that your brain works and try and find what works best for you. I will not say that doing this method solely without extreme repetition and working early, don't wait till the last minute. You need all of these things. Repetition builds those fucking connections in your brain. It makes them strong, it makes them hard. And the second that you continue to work this process using, whatever stimulant, because I'm a smoker, man. Tell me you don't like smoking, fuck you. I'm gonna smoke any fucking way. It helps me write. It helps me to fucking clear my thoughts and learn how to fucking just focus on one damn thing. You know what I mean? So again, that's really all it is. It's not anything extensive or that rigorous. It's just a couple simple tips you can use to maximize the potential of your brain. And these things also help in the category of creativity. You can't have creativity unless you're really getting all fucking cylinders firing in your brain. And the second that you do, boy, I tell you, you're gonna fucking fly through those bars and they will stick there with you. And if you continue this process while you're writing your bars and just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and then when you fall asleep, it's going to come back. If you're lost and you got a fucking spot that you're stuck on, keep working the words. You want that end rhyme, so just fucking take a little nap, wake up, and bam, I promise you will get that shit. This shit works for me every time. 13 battles, not a slip, not a choke, not fucking nothing. I've had a couple times when my mouth was dry and I like almost bit my fucking tongue off and shit. But other than that, I've done pretty fucking well for myself, and I hope to continue to do that way. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has their bad day, so we can't always take a fucking choke that serious to heart. I've seen some of the best in the fucking region choke. It happens to the best of us. It's not something that's inexcusable, but we can try and work that and really understand the way that our brains work so that we can drop down the probability of that happening. But again, this method, along with constant repetition and practice, I feel is foolproof if you just try it. That's all I really got to say as far as all of this goes. If you need any other fucking reference material, anything like that, or want to know more about the brain or anything, feel free to fucking hit me up in the inbox. And by the way, fuck y'all. You're all ugly anyway, bitches. Peace.